Hey, welcome back, chemistry students. I'm Mr. Silverstein. Today we're going to work on electron dot diagrams and electron dot structures where you're going to learn how to bond two elements together. Get out your notepad, take out your spiral notebook, have a pencil. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get started. So in our first lesson on electron dot diagrams, you learned that we're only concerned about the valence electrons when looking at bonding. And you saw how placing the valence electrons as individual dots around the elemental symbol makes it a whole lot easier to set up that element for bonding. And so today we're going to create electron dot diagrams to show the bond formation. And remember that electron dot diagram or that Lewis dot diagram is a representation of the valence electrons of an atom that uses dots around the element of the symbol. And the number of dots equals the number of valence electrons in that electron. And these diagrams are used to illustrate chemical bonds. So remember, you first draw the electron dot structure for the elements. Then you're going to transfer electrons, drawing an arrow from the metal to the nonmetal. And this is what's going to show the bond formation. You always want to set up the metals on the left and the nonmetals on the right. And then you start to add elements as needed. We're going to show you how this is done in just a moment. You're going to continue transferring until all the atoms are stable. And then you'll write the chemical formula using subscripts to show how many of each element were needed. So let's first look at a single bond formation. And this lesson addresses the single ionic bonds between metals and nonmetals only. Metals give an electron to a nonmetal, forming a single bond compound. So let's see how we use this electron dot diagram to show this bond formation. In our first example, we want to determine what compound will form between sodium and chlorine. So you're going to take out your periodic table. You're going to identify the elemental symbol for sodium and the elemental symbol for chlorine. And for sodium, it's Na. And sodium has one valence electron. It's in group 1. Chlorine, all the way on the other side of the periodic table. And chlorine is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 valence electrons. And so with this kind of diagram, it's pretty easy to see that we're only going to need one sodium atom to bond with chlorine. And this is going to be illustrated by just drawing an arrow into the open space. This is also why it's important that you set up metals on the left, nonmetals on the right, so you can have that space available. So you start that in a clockwise motion with the first electron on chlorine, the second, the third, the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. So you have that space available. And so the chemical formula for this is going to be NaCl. There's no subscripts needed because we only have one sodium and one chlorine. Pretty easy, isn't it? Now, let's take a look at example 2. What compound will form between aluminum and chlorine? Well, we find aluminum, Al. Aluminum has 3 valence electrons. And we saw previously that chlorine has 7 valence electrons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, just looking at this illustration, if aluminum has 3 valence electrons and chlorine has 7, how many aluminum elements or aluminum atoms are going to be needed to form a compound with chlorine? Well, let's take a look. I've got 1, but now I have these 2 electrons left over. So let me get another chlorine, bond that one, but I still have 1 more left over, don't I? So let's get another chlorine atom and make that bond. And so now I have 1 chlorine atom, 1 aluminum atom and 3 chlorine atoms. And so this would end up being AlCl3, because I have 1 aluminum and 3 chlorines. And this shows a single bond. It's a single valence electron bond to each of these chlorines. Pretty easy, isn't it? I'm going to give you a moment to copy that down. And remember, these slides are posted for you on your Google Classroom. So it's practice time. You're going to find this in your notes pack on page 7 at the top. I'd like you to pause the video and create the electron dot structures for potassium. Remember, potassium is K, not P. Potassium and chlorine, magnesium and fluorine, aluminum and nitrogen, and magnesium and phosphorus. Pause your video, take a few minutes and work on that, and then pick us back up. All right, once you've done those practices, I want you to open up assignment L2 on electron dot diagrams, and you're going to create electron diagrams for many of these elements again. We're going to do almost all of these that are on this page. And I've set that up for you just like we used before on the slides with moving the dots over. So you're going to get really familiar with these before we start doing some of the bigger compounds. Well, that's all I have for you now, guys. If you have any questions along the way, please email me. Other than that, you guys have a great day.